The reason I prefer the free weight preacher curl is because the exercise is the hardest at the start of the exercise, and then as we go through the range of motion, it gets easier and easier. Right here, it's really hard, but then as I go through the range of motion, it gets a little bit easier as we get to the top, and then right at the top, it's super easy. This is in contrast to the machine preacher curl, in which the machine preacher curl is hard from the very start of the exercise all the way to the very end, right? It's just difficult. Now that kind of sounds against muscle building principles. That kind of sounds like, whoa, what the hell? That makes no sense. Why would you want an exercise to get easier? Aren't you always telling us, Omar, that we should train hard and do hard things in the gym? Surely we'd want to choose the exercise that's hardest throughout the entire range of motion. Initially, that sounds like a fair point, and that sounds like it would make sense. However, as I will explain in this video, there's actually a lot of benefit to an exercise like the preacher curl getting easier as we go through the range of motion. There's actually benefit to this exercise being hard at the start and then easy at the end, as opposed to just being hard throughout the entire range of motion. So in this video, I'll explain why. I'll explain it in absolutely simplified terms. I won't go into too much detail. I'll just give you what you need to know, and that way you can leave this video having learnt something and carrying on about your day. To understand why there's benefit to the exercise getting easier, we need to understand how the bicep works. The bicep has the most strength when we are slightly bent at the elbow. When we are fully lengthened like this, right, in which the elbow is straight, the bicep has strength, but not the max amount of strength it could have. When we have a little bend like this, right, which is about 90 degrees of elbow bend, the bicep is the strongest here. Now, as we curl up, when the bicep starts contracting and getting in that fully shortened position, right, when you get to that squeezy part of the range of motion, the bicep starts to lose a bit of strength there. It's not as strong in that position, and its ability to produce force and produce power isn't as great when it's really contracted and when we're really in the squeeze. Why is this a slight issue when using machine preacher curls? The reason it's an issue is because, as I established at the start of the video, a lot of machine preacher curls are hard at the start, hard in the middle, and hard right at the very end. So the exercise is still really hard at the exact point where the bicep struggles the most, right? It's really hard for the bicep to contract and get in that squeezy position, yet the machine is still demanding a lot out of your biceps. It's still telling your biceps like, yo, motherfucker, you better work fucking tough. And this doesn't sound bad, at surface level, but the reason it's a problem is because a lot of lifters, and me included, right, I am super guilty of this, and I've been super guilty for years. A lot of us will conclude the set and we'll end the set and rack the weight because we can't get right to that top range of motion. Because we can't get our arm all the way up, we will end the set because we think that our biceps are done. We think that, oh, yep, our biceps are tired. We can't train the bicep anymore. I've gone to failure. I can't come up all the way anymore. I'm done. Let me rack the weight. I'm done with the set. Now, where this is problematic is that what's actually happening is your bicep has just lost its ability to get really short. It's just lost its ability to get really contracted in that top range, but it still has more to give in that middle range. In that middle range where I drew that 90-degree angle, which by the way was a fucking horrendous drawing, but where I drew that 90-degree angle, your bicep still has strength there. There's still more gains to make in that position, but you don't think there's more gains to make, and you're not going to go for those gains because you think your biceps are done. You think they're fully tired and they can't give any more simply because you can't get to that really squeezed position at the top. And so where the problem occurs is most of us kind of leave gains on the table. We sort of end the set just because we can't get all the way to the top, which gives us the impression that our biceps are done and that they're tired. But really, the biceps still had more to give. They still had more strength in that bottom range. We just didn't even bother exploring that bottom range because we thought we were done as soon as we realized we can't come up all the way to the top. Now, where the free weight version fixes this problem is the free weight version is the hardest when our biceps are in that mid-range. When we've got that 90-degree angle, that's exactly where the exercise is the hardest. And then as we come up, the exercise gets easier. Now, I'll explain why it gets easier in a second, but this is perfect. This is perfect for the biceps. We want an exercise which is the hardest exactly where the muscle is the strongest, i.e. right here. And then we also want that exercise to get easier exactly where the muscle is the weakest, i.e. here. And the free weight version does exactly that, which is why I would prefer the free weight version over the machine version when presented with a choice. But why is that the case? The reason for that is because of something called moment arms. Now this is where physics comes into things, and I'll do a very simple job of explaining things. But essentially, when it comes to doing the preacher curl, we've got the elbow joint, and then we got the weight that we are using, right? Now with the free weight version, the weight is pulling us straight down. Why? Because gravity works in a straight line up and down, right? Well, no, not up, just down. So gravity pulls us down, right? So wherever we're holding the bar, it's pulling us down. So that is called the line of resistance. The line of resistance goes straight down. And so what we are looking for is the distance between the line of resistance and the elbow joint. The greater that distance, the harder the exercise. The shorter the distance, the easier that exercise. Let me give you some diagrams now. In this position, we can see the distance between the line of resistance and the elbow is that, whatever distance that is. It doesn't matter what the exact distance is, we just know it's that big. Now, when we get into this position here, this position in which the bicep is the strongest, we can see that the distance between the line of resistance and the elbow has gotten greater. This is what makes the exercise the hardest here. When we've got the biggest distance between line of resistance and elbow, that's where the exercise is the greatest, right? This distance, by the way, is called the moment arm. And so when the moment arm is the greatest, that's when the exercise is the hardest. And as we've explained, in the free weight version, the exercise is the hardest exactly where the bicep is the strongest. Perfect. Now, as we carry on with the curl, we see that at the top, the line of resistance, which is the purple line, is straight above the elbow joint, which means that there is no moment arm. In other words, there's no resistance. In other words, it's not hard up here at all. There's no tension on the bicep up here at all. And you could just chill in this position all day long without fatiguing your biceps at all. And this is perfect because we know that in that top position, that's exactly where the bicep is the weakest. And so because of how physics works, we now have an exercise that is hard when we start it out and then it gets easier and easier. And we are performing this exercise on a muscle that is strong when we start out, but then gets weaker and weaker. So it's a perfect match. We've perfectly matched the resistance profile of the exercise, which is everything I've just drawn now with all these diagrams and lines and moment arms, with the strength curve of the bicep, which is everything I just explained about how the bicep is weaker as we contract it. We've got a perfect match. We've got a perfect match between resistance profile and strength curve of the bicep. Now with the machine version, machines provide what's called constant tension, meaning that as you go through the range of motion, the exercise doesn't get easier at any point. You know, the resistance doesn't drop off. And so, as I just explained throughout this entire video, that's not always the best option for biceps, right? Machines have constant tension, meaning it's just as hard at the start as it is in the middle as it is at the end, whereas the free weight version has a descending resistance profile, meaning it starts hard but then gets easier, right? The resistance descends downwards. It starts hard and gets easier. That's just been my quick explanation on why I prefer the free weight preacher curl. I try to show some diagrams and explain things to you, bro. But yeah, honestly, at the end of the day, this little detail is, well, exactly that, just a little detail. If your gym doesn't have a free weight preacher station and you have to use a machine, use the machine, bro. Do not skip out on preacher curls just because of what you learned in this video. Always do your preacher curls, whether it's a machine or dumbbell or cable. But this video is just for the kind of nerdy people that really care about the ins and outs and that have a choice between free weights or machines. If you have the choice, I would personally go with free weights for exactly why you learn in this video. But if you don't have a choice, bro, I promise you this is very, very minor details. It really won't make a huge difference in the grand scheme of things. All you got to do if you are forced to use a machine or you want to use a machine is just do length and partials at the end, right? So you get to a point where you can't contract the muscle all the way up anymore. Just do some half reps in that bottom range, right? Just milk out that bottom range for as long as you can because your bicep will still have strength there. Just do a couple length and partials, then conclude the set and you're good, bro. So really, this has just been a video explaining the difference, putting it in really simplified terms. But at the end of the day, this video and what you learned here is not life-changing or revolutionary or anything new or anything to even lose a single minute of sleep about or spend a single minute overthinking. Like, bro, Just fucking train hard with any bicep you like and you'll be fucking good. That said, if I'm on your screen right now, then I've kept your interest somehow. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next video in a bit.